All right, we are live. Let's go.
Good morning. Good morning,
Good
Luke.
morning. This is our first ever Cadre conversation. My name is Luke Wendlandt. Honored to be here with you. And what is your name?
My name is Shannon Stauff. It's an honor to be here with you, Luke.
Well, this is a good, as we do with Cadre, we're authentic, bold, and real.
Yep.
So let's jump in
Let's do it.
right away. I just want to start off by asking a little bit about your story. How did you get here in, call it, the last 2 to 3 years of your life to be in Cadre?
Yeah, last
What
two to
does that
three
look
years.
like?
Well, I met you. That was a big one. My life, I made a decision after many, many years in a professional capacity to do the thing I wanted to do, which was to support people on their mental health journeys by just, I think, telling my story, which really involves my own mental health story, but also navigating the mental health system on behalf of my child who has autism. And so I think my best skill set as a human is I really love communication, as you know from working with me
Yes,
now,
very much so. We love that.
which is good and bad for those who are in a relationship with me. But I just really appreciate the power of authenticity, the power of telling our story and speaking our truth. And so for me, it was very much about, I think it started out of a passion to speak the truth about caregiving. And then it was very lonely. As I navigated that journey for my son, it was very isolating for me. I was married at that time to his father, and we just kind of shut down when we were in the process of the hardest time taking care of our son with autism. And because we weren't like the norm. And so because people didn't get it, we just closed into ourselves.
Understood.
And so I didn't love that. And it made me kind of angry, honestly. And so I set out to not have that be the case for others. And so I think that path led me here to Cadre. And again, with my own mental health journeys with anxiety, CPSTD, all the things, just wanting to create a safe space for people to talk about all the stuff that happens that is normal, that we all live through, and just have it be okay to do that.
My next question for you is when all that's true, what have you found to be, maybe it's the biggest imposter syndrome, maybe it's the biggest reality of the process or the journey, or maybe it's the truth of how other people feel or yourself feel when you're saying, like, I want to be able to share and tell my story. Like, so my question to you is, how is that making you feel when you're going in, and what are you feeling from other people when you're starting to go there with folks?
So it's a couple things. I think it makes me feel super free, which is weird. Because when we go out, and you know this, you've been there, we do it together. You go out and you sit in a room and you say, like, hey, I have this thing. You might have a thing. And every single conversation ends with, like, there is a thing. Because whether it's something that is like mine, like anxiety or caring, whatever it is, we all have a thing because we're humans. And so I think for me, it's very freeing to give people that space, because I believe what we do is we give that space for others to have it be okay. So is it scary sometimes? Yes. I don't really care anymore, because the last 2 years, 3 years of doing this, and particularly the last year with Cadre, has been like, it's not work to me. I don't feel like I've worked a day. I mostly am just grateful that, like, we get to do this. And then I see people open up and I see people feel better. And so, like, it's a gift.
Is there a story in particular that just resonates with you or hits you like a ton of bricks through all the agencies and organizations or entities that we've had a chance to work with or talk with or grow with, that you're just like, wow, this is real? And this hits home for somebody. Is there a story that was very impactful for you?
I think it's just the little things. So I think the interesting thing that I find is we will go out and have conversations, or we'll post something on social, and it's just giving, again, the space for it. And then what I find to be interesting is I'll get messages on LinkedIn, and a lot of times it'll be from men who maybe didn't have the space to talk about it, because I think particularly in a professional setting for men, that's just taboo, and men in general. And it's obviously women as well. But giving people the space to do it, I can't tell you how many messages I've received, like, behind the scenes of, hey, actually, this is my situation, or hey, this is my story. And just like, thank you for having a space to do this. And those, for me, like, my best day is when I get that, and not like, I'm not like glad they're going through something, but it's just to know that they felt a little better, because all I would have wanted, and you always say this, like for you, I think it's like my 20-year-old self. For me, for like my 40-year-old self, I would have wanted, or my 35-year-old self, I would have wanted to see someone where I had like just the space to be like, oh my God, I'm not the only one.
Yeah.
And so I think that's where I see it. It's like, oops, it's literally my best day where I'm just grateful.
That's beautiful. My next like follow up with that is, so speaking that truth, how does Cadre, because there's a lot of mental health apps, there's a lot of different one-to-one providers, there is a variety of different wellness platforms, there's a variety of different niched apps, there's a bunch of solutions that are available.
Yeah.
But here's the but: very few have stood the test of time past 1, 2, 3, 4 years. And my question is, what do you think differentiates Cadre to be able to stand the test of time?
I think it's community. And I think it's because it's not a gimmick. It's not a one-off approach. It's not a modality. It's not a one way that this might work, right? So Cadre's belief system is plurality, and I think a lot of that comes from you. And I'm going to ask you a bunch of questions in a minute too.
You can fire,
just so we know we're
fire
gonna
away on anything.
But we believe that like whatever works for you is what works for you. And so I think the power of that message, and then the backup of the community, I mean, going all the way back into history, which I don't know and can't quote appropriately, community is everything. We know that, like social determinants of health.
Tribe.
Community, it's a tribe. And so like if we're a real tribe that's showing up authentically, that sustains, period, right? That sustains over time. And that's true. And if we show up that way to each other, it will sustain.
Now, building a product, neither you and I are tech.
Correct.
Right? We are
Not at
not
all.
developers.
We are not.
Talking about Python and
Nothing. I don't even know the words.
all the different aspects that are available in technology today, AI, you name it. Not knowing product, but knowing what people want. What has been one of the hardest things for you at Cadre of like understanding the different dimension dynamics of all, right? Because if you take a step and you think about it, we're a video production crew.
Sure.
We are a content creator crew.
Yep.
We are a social platform.
Yep.
We are a community-based platform.
Yep.
Oh, and by the way, we springboard individuals into one-to-one services
Yep.
if needed or necessary.
Yeah.
What's been your biggest struggle over, and that this is actually a really positive thing,
for sure,
because we're getting to a place where this is all true. What's been your like biggest struggle in developing and building this as your role as COO of the organization?
I think it is probably that integration of tech, and it's of product, and we call it programming, because we have humans. And so my background, as you know, comes from like media, advertising, marketing. So I understand like the social piece. I understand the community, the programming piece, and how you do that those intangibles, but then connecting them to the product. I also love data. So you actually probably know this about me. I love measuring stuff. And so I think for me, it's like, what do we need to measure to show impact? That's probably my hardest thing, is I want to get to the data. I want to get to the measurement. And so how do we work together with the product team, and then bringing in the right folks from a data perspective to like, what is the measurement that we need to get to here? Because it is sort of how do you measure community?
Correct.
That's hard.
It is. It's very hard, right? I mean, from the conversations we had on return of on an investment,
correct.
That could be on anything. Any business on earth is going to say, if we market A, does it sell? If we spend X on our people, does it work? If we do Y on a benefit of health insurance, do we have a return on investment? It could be anything for any organization. When you hear return on investment for Cadre, what do you think of? Like when you think, if you're sitting down with a CHRO, a president of an organization, they say, well, what really would be the benefit for our folks?
Yeah, absolutely.
How would you answer that?
Yeah, I mean, I think it can go, right? There's a lot of metrics attached to it. I think the long game ultimately is, do I believe there is an outcome attached to, again, we talked of sort of like all the human experiences that then connect to a mental health condition like anxiety, like depression. Going back to those human experiences, if I'm getting a divorce, if I am a caregiver, if I'm taking care of a parent with Alzheimer's, if I'm grieving something, there is data that shows connection to anxiety, depression, et cetera, which then connects to physical issues, right? Like all of that is there. To me, that is the long game, is showing that.
I agree.
What I believe we can ultimately show is if someone uses Cadre, I'm going to feel better. If I feel better, I'm going to show up at work. If I feel better, I'm not going to quit my job. If I feel better, I can navigate the day to day. And I think for us to be able to begin to measure that and show an employer, hey, you know, we just spoke with an organization yesterday where their CHRO said, hey, managers, it's $5,000 when we lose an employee. Training, uniforms, all the things. So if we can come in as Cadre and say, hey, this is a way in which we actually do a lot of the heavy lifting for you, for your mental health. We support you. And you don't have to do that. We make it easy. We also just make it like feel better for everyone included. We can save you those dollars. We can get your people to show up. And then that long game is there, you know, again, following that entire line down to the mental health outcomes, and then the physical outcomes. I mean, it's all there. I think it's just like the near term ROI followed by the long-term ROI. And it's just, for us, I believe we need the time to show that, to play it out.
You know, one thing that would be interesting would be to ask organizations what percentage of your folks would be willing to come forward in regards to a mental health crisis, substance abuse, caregiver, helping support a child that is autistic, etc., to be able to say, what percentage of individuals would be willing to come forward to say, this is happening in my life today?
Yeah.
And if I had a guess right now, I'd say it's a coin flip still.
Oh, yeah.
That would be willing to come forward.
Yeah.
And I think like a true investment, like a true return to add to it, would be if organizations' numbers could continue to go up. That more and more people would be willing to come forward with, I'm struggling with my son at home.
I totally agree.
And I can't even begin to tell you what this is doing for my work performance, but instead we're scared.
Absolutely.
And we're scared about the work performance rather than the human side of things.
I think that's
amazing.
amazing.
So if we can continue to work organizations up to say, our people come forward with problems.
Yeah.
And they're honest about it.
Yeah.
Why? We're all human beings dealing with true human conditions all the time, right? You and I discuss the 42-year-old woman at work often, right? The 42-year-old woman who's might be having mom or dad struggling through going through a caregiver response alone. Could be end of life.
Absolutely.
Could be dealing with their kids off to college or whatever that looks like.
Yeah.
Kids struggling, 33% of individuals ages 6 through 25 are on the neurodiverse spectrum.
Correct. Yep.
Right. So now you have 1/3 in that group that are Gen Z.
Yep.
So,
oh my gosh, so many things.
But we struggle to be able to articulate that to others, I still believe, because of fear.
Absolutely.
And if that's something that Cadre can continue to show up for as organizations, to say, let's pull back the fear layer, and let's pull back and let's move forward with the real layer. I think that's also one half of our battle, of our value proposition with helping support organizations and how embedded we are into their systems of care, like to show like a cultural shift and a cultural change. And if that could be, if that could ever forever be like a legacy standpoint for us as Cadre, not as individuals, but as a team, that we can help organizations come forward and have those conversations, then people don't have to suffer alone.
That's huge.
And suffer in silence and wonder what this means and try to show up to work.
Yeah. I love that. Okay, now I'm going to turn the tables on you.
You turn the tables on me on anything.
So I love the word legacy. You just thought of that, or you just brought that word up. So I absolutely love that. If we could create a legacy at organizations where those leaders can be the people that turn the tide on people's abilities to show up as humans at work, like that's, who doesn't want that? Well,
but let's take this even a step deeper. The reality is, in organizations today, somebody's sitting in a leadership role that looks like me, that's 15 years older than I am, in many, many corporations and companies across the United States. Right? Doesn't matter if it's JP Morgan, Fortune 500 companies, you name it. Vast majority look like me.
Yes.
And we also have a persona of us.
Correct.
And we also have background of millennial parents, or,
Yep.
or they are the millennials
Yeah.
that are leaving the workplace.
Yes.
And feelings was not something, going back to my childhood, my dad knew how to do two things: work insanely hard, and provide for his family. Right? We never talked about feelings. We never did any of that. And the reality is, I don't think my dad's very different from a lot of 60 other individuals that are representing organizations.
Yeah.
So how can we teach people
Yeah.
that are still in maybe mid to late 50s, early
Yeah.
60s, to see this world a little differently, especially representing the generational divide
Yeah.
of all the folks that are either A, in the workforce, or B, working into the workforce, while this still sandwich exists?
Yeah. And so, Luke, I'm going to ask you then again. I think that's a fantastic question. And again, you being just, you said it, right? You're a early 40s, fit.
No, I'm not anymore. I'm working on that. I'm working on that.
You're a fit, healthy, young 40-something male, right? So you are a leader. Technically, like if you were to write down today the majority of like what does a leader look like in the US today, or like a 60-year-old man, like you're saying, right? So it's a white male. So to your point of how do we change the behaviors of those folks, can you tell us a little bit about you? And you said, you were taught by your dad, you work hard, you show up, you don't talk about feelings, which of course is if you were to just see that on paper, it's great to work hard, right? It's great to provide for your family. And I think that's some of the hard part about mental health in general, is you can find things that are in and of themselves, they're positive. It's positive to work hard. There's also another side to that. So would you talk a little bit about your journey to why you're here and how, because obviously you want to change that for the leaders and you're a leader. So can you just talk about how you got here? And I know you always talk about your 24-year-old self. So will you take us back there?
Well, I just want to first start out by saying that there's a lot of people struggling in our world today. And I just want to let you all know, like, we all are.
Yeah.
Like, there's no matter what day it is, we all have something. And so I just want to start off by saying that. So we're all in that same circle with you, that circle of trust to be able to share. There's many times growing up that I knew something wasn't right with me, but I didn't know what. It could be a tennis match that I wouldn't be able to sleep the night before, and my stomach would be going crazy. It could have been a test that my hands are palpitating and sweating.
Yeah.
And so I always knew anxiety was something that I was dealing with, but it was like the get over it.
Yeah.
Like we were like the get over it crew, right?
Suck
like
it up.
your coach would say, well, get out there and play, or you lost a tight match. Well, results are everything. That's how I was raised. Not saying my mom and dad didn't love me.
Of course.
They loved me in an insane amount. Showing it was very, very different. My mom was affectionate. My mom talked about love, love, love. My dad on the other end, there'd be many summers where I wouldn't even, quite frankly, see my dad a lot. And again, it goes back to the value of hard work, what he did, how he did it. He worked a construction business where you work all summer long. And then you have your winters where you're like bidding jobs and whatnot. So that was kind of like how I was raised. My dad worked at the same place for his entire life.
Yeah.
Since he was 19 years old.
Yep.
Ended up buying out the business, buying the company. My mom worked the same place her entire life.
In rural Minnesota,
Rural
right?
Minnesota,
Yep.
Hutchinson, Minnesota.
Yep.
It's west of Minneapolis, St. Paul by, call it an hour, a little over an hour. And, Hutch was a great community, growing up in a great community. But when I found that I had social anxiety as well, I found my superpower, which was alcohol. So in high school, you have a drink or two or a couple beers, and before you know it, it's like you're easy, you're flowing, you're able to speak, show up at different events, and you name it. Before things turn into identity of who you are, and I think we're all trying to find ourselves.
Always.
Right? 16, 18, 20, 24, you name it. Did some amazing things during that time, did some horrible things. And that I wish I could get back, but that's neither here nor there.
Yep.
But then when I was off to college and through my 20s, I found my anxiety really started reaching a fever pitch at about mid 20. And I don't even know if it was the Google era or the
not even yet. I don't even
what's
know.
it called, Netscape era, where you try to
It was the
figure out,
dial-up? It was
yeah,
like the-
yeah, to try to find out answers.
Yeah.
And I would always be wondering, like, what's going on? Like, for example, I would lie to get out of stuff. Like, oh, there's a tennis match in the cities and we're leaving at 7 a.m. And my anxiety would be going, this would be mid 20s.
Yeah.
And last minute I would say, I don't feel good.
Yeah.
You know, so
Yeah.
I could get out of it, because I know that driving has always been hard for me.
Yeah.
Like being on the road, like that lack of control.
Yeah.
Like I felt like I was always just like crammed into a spot.
Yeah.
Flying has always been very difficult.
Yeah.
Right. I remember an example of leaving Bozeman, Montana, visiting my brother, and telling the stewardess in the far back, I don't feel good. I think I have the flu. And the reality is I didn't know what was going on.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I felt like out of control.
Yeah.
And I felt strapped and tight
Yep.
to a specific confined area.
Yeah. Yep.
And then what ends up happening, though, and this is the scary part about anxiety, is number one, when you don't know what's happening to you, you think you're having a heart attack, you're thinking you're
Yep.
this and you're this. And I have stories to share all about that as well. I've had my heart checked. I've had brain scans. I'm not kidding.
No, I believe you.
I've done it all the MRIs, all everything that always come out
they're like,
not
"Well,
inconclusive, like
they're like,
totally
"You're
fine.
okay. You're healthy-
You're
healthy
fine.
man."
You're fine.
Yep.
You're fine. And that's like, and when you go through the process to learn about yourself,
Yeah.
unfortunately, I didn't have Cadre. I didn't have peers and professionals that talked about this.
Yeah.
To be honest, like we didn't have TikTok, Instagram, Twitter,
Yeah.
where yes, a lot of that is unvetted material. It's still material.
Sure.
But even Googling,
Yeah.
right? You could Google today and say, is this anxiety? Is it this?
Yes.
Is it this? And to be able to find answers to help support it, or books or
Yeah.
information.
Yep.
And I was just left to my devices to try to figure it out.
Yeah.
To try to figure out what's happening. And I had the countless nights that I found myself in a bed, not a bed, a bathtub.
Yeah.
Sitting in a bathtub, warm bath, like with my heart just palpitating, going,
Yeah.
what is happening? And what
yeah.
is going on? And I thought I was dying, like
Yeah.
so many times.
Yeah.
I have stopped literally hundreds of times driving to work over the years,
Yep.
where I would stop on the side of the road because I thought I was going to lose control and crash.
Yeah.
I have driven many, many miles where I would stop, and I'll use an example. If I'm driving to Duluth, Minnesota, which is
Yeah.
about a 2-hour drive for those that don't know, I would drive back roads.
That's okay.
I would drive back
Yeah.
roads the entire way,
Yeah.
where I didn't have to worry about 4 lanes
Like
or
you
2
felt
lanes
more
of
in control?
traffic. Yep, 2
Yeah.
lanes of traffic, so I could go 55.
That's great.
And drive. And then you learn different tactics and skills and
Like
whatnot,
coping
and
mechanisms.
coping
Yeah.
mechanisms. And then there's exposure therapy. There's all these
Yeah.
different things that you have the opportunity to work through. But figuring out it alone sucked.
Yeah.
And it took years and years and years and years.
Mm-hmm.
And is there still times today where I will have a panic attack? It's probably once a year.
Yeah.
And I can tell you some of the things that I have to deal with that is
Yeah.
sleep, caffeine,
Yeah.
exercise, meditation,
Yeah.
journaling, communicating with my wife, making sure that all of my relationships are intact.
Yeah.
That really matter. I've also taken my circle and made it insanely small.
Yeah.
I mean, very, very, very small, tight-knit circle. And those things are important to me because like my mental health,
Yeah.
if I, like number one, like recovery and booze and drinking and everything is one thing. And then my mental health over here is another. Do they coincide? Of course.
Yeah.
But if I want to be the best husband I can be, the best father I can be, the best colleague I can be, the best employee I can be, the only way I can do that is to take care of myself.
Yeah.
And so I've vested time, effort, energy, money, all of it
Yeah.
into a platform that I believe will ultimately change the world. And I'm naive enough to believe that to be true.
No, but I think what you're saying is so true because everything you just said, if you listen to all of that and you listen to all those years of all the things you do, and I can relate to it from the anxiety perspective as well. And like, it's a practice, right? So what you learned in all of that is like it's all those tiny moments. Like it's when you're on the side of a road, it's when you're sitting in the bathtub, it's when you have to go to the tennis game, it's all the things, and whatever it is for anyone else out there, it's like all that stuff. And like what you're saying and what I'm saying, what Cadre is saying is like, and a therapist is freaking fantastic for that diagnosis of generalizing
For sure.
anxiety disorder. At some point, I'm sure you did seek a clinical something, right? Or at least I'll speak for myself.
Yeah.
I'm on meds for anxiety. I have been for 8 years. I tried to go off. I was like, nope, that's not great. I learned that pretty quickly. And that's
But you
what,
learned that about yourself.
and I did. And I still see a therapist. I've seen a therapist for 8 years. And I still have all those moments that you have. And so like for me, and I think, and I don't want to speak for you, but like the truth is you still need to be surrounded by people. Like you're when you were seeking support in those moments, you just wanted to be like, you were like, what is this?
Yep.
And if someone would have said to you, oh, hey man, I have that too. I'm guessing that would have made you feel a little better.
I'll give you an example.
Yeah.
There's been a few times in marathons where individuals have dropped dead and died
Yeah.
at mid 20s,
Yeah.
early 30s,
Yeah.
40s. So I'm so sorry to them and their families. There isn't a time today, I'm 43,
Yep.
that when I go out for a run, I still sometimes don't think about that. Like
That's
if I'm
okay.
being completely honest.
That's okay.
Like, because, if we're authentic and
Yeah,
real
yeah,
and
yeah.
raw, which we need to be at Cadre every day,
Yeah.
that's who we are.
Yeah.
But to share that openly also allows somebody else to open up and say, you know that toothbrush thing that I have?
Yeah.
You know that, reading thing I
Yeah,
have,
whatever that
getting on a
is.
plane thing
Yep.
I have.
Yep.
Like there's a lot of people that can raise their hand and say, me too. And that's okay.
Yeah.
And
It's
if,
true.
if those are doors that we can open here,
Exactly.
that somebody can pick up their phone and go, me too.
Exactly.
Like I feel that oh my gosh, you're waking up and your son is struggling to get off to school and I still have to show up for a 9 o'clock meeting and I got this pressure and stress and there's life and there's financials and
That's
there's
right.
and there's
That's
there's
right.
this tip of this there's this volcano
Yeah.
that's just about to blow.
Yep.
For a lot of human beings.
And if you take that back all the way back to the workplace conversation, you take that back to the HR leader and you take that back to the other employees, you're normal, I'm normal. That organization is full of people who are normal, which means that you look around that room, including that leader,
Yep.
and you know this and I know this from talking to those leaders, they have that stuff. So at Cadre, we have 12 communities today. There'll be more, but we try to cover these big buckets of populations of people or groups of people that have stuff. And like, again, like you just said, so like that volcano that's about to erupt, we could go around the room and I guarantee you again, like raise your hand if you're in one of those populations, you are. Someone is in that room. And so I think that's what we're trying to solve for is helping those folks in those moments not have to feel that way.
Correct. And I would also say personally over the years, and I'm speaking for myself, but I think a lot of people can resonate with this concept.
Yeah.
Is 20 years ago, we call it in our family, and yes, the kids, this is the only time they can swear.
Yeah.
We call it the fucking first time.
Okay.
There's the first time where it's probably gonna suck.
Yeah.
Right? Walking into middle school,
Yep.
it's the fucking first time.
Yep.
Right? And then it'll become easier, and it'll
Yeah.
become easier and become easier and become easier.
Yep.
And I view mental health,
Yeah.
health, exercise, meditation, journaling,
Yeah.
speaking to a therapist,
Yeah.
any of it. There's also the FFT,
Yeah.
the fucking first
There
time.
is.
And when you do it,
Yeah.
you're going to realize like that was really, really hard.
Yeah.
Yep, it is.
Yeah.
But then it gets a little less
does.
hard and a little less hard and a little less hard. So now if you look at your mid 40 self and my mid 40
Being
self,
generous. Thank you. Thank you for the
but our
generosity.
mid 40 selves,
Yes.
what we'll find is
Yes.
these bumps along the road
Yeah.
that used to be mountains
Yeah.
and then were potholes and now they're bumps.
Yeah.
You can become, you're not completely drenched
Correct.
in rain when you're there.
Yeah.
But you might have an umbrella now.
Yeah.
And that umbrella is us here at Cadre.
Yeah.
Being able to support you on your journey to help you through the rain.
Exactly. And it's just a little less lonely. Like it's a little less lonely. And then you can go there and you can see someone. And, I can speak again to like my experiences. I've met people in here that I don't technically know.
Me neither.
Right. They live in other states. I know them by their name in Cadre, but I know they see me. I know I see them. I just got to spend some time on Monday with Jules, who's one of our Cadre Shout out to Jules. She's one of our first Cadre friends, I think. It seems, we love Jules. And she was just talking about her experience. So you asked me earlier, is there a story that resonates with me? That's definitely one where, she told me her story, and I know you know it, of, sitting in, I don't want to share all of her story, but being in a moment where she needed support and reaching out to Cadre and then saying like, oh God, did I do that? Yikes. Right. But then since that time, it's part of her life. And so, and I'm not saying that to be like, go Cadre, we're amazing, like a self-congratulatory thing. But, I sat in a car with her on Monday, and I don't really know Jules, but we had a really deep, direct, honest, authentic conversation. And it's because of a connection that was built over an app.
Yeah.
And that's real.
It is.
And so I think that's the stuff that it doesn't mean we're going to be best friends and sit together every single day. And like our lives aren't going to be, we're not going to be neighbors and all the things. And we don't have to be, because that connection can still be real and still add value to me and to you and to her.
I agree completely. Yeah. That's a good story.
It's a great story.
And it's she's one of our, I would call it, super users.
She is. On
the app. And it's always great to see her. And to be frank, though, what she doesn't know is how much she means to us.
Correct.
Right? Because I think she thinks Cadre, Cadre means so much to her. And I would like to tell her it's actually the opposite.
Correct.
Like seeing her show up is just a beautiful thing, right? Because what are my consistents I know to be true? When I wake up in the morning, odds are
Yep.
that my animals will be there.
Animals?
My animals.
Okay.
My dogs. My dogs will be there.
Yep.
My wife will be there.
Hopefully.
Hopefully. And my children will be there.
Yes.
That's
Yes.
the odds are that's
Of
to be
course
true.
they will. Yes.
The minute I walk outside
Yeah.
of my home,
Yeah.
the rest is up for chance.
Absolutely.
And that's life.
Yeah.
Right? And we all know that. And
Yeah.
the world knows that. But you can either try to control that,
Yeah.
the outside, or you can let it become more and more free and allow like gratitude to spike.
Yeah.
And so what I'm trying to say through all that is this journey has brought me an infinite amount of stress. Don't get me wrong. I'm going to be real. I'm always going to keep it real.
It's true.
It's an infinite amount of
Correct.
stress of
Yes.
learning something I've never done before,
Yeah.
of figuring out what the organizations, the people, the users, the creators, the contributors,
Yeah.
everybody wants and why,
Yeah.
and listening to all of it.
Yeah.
And then we run an internal team. There's always dynamics.
Sure.
There's always life.
Yeah,
There's
yeah.
always all of it. But it's worth all of it
Oh, for sure.
for 1
1,000%.
jewel.
Oh my God.
And then you have 10, and then you have
Yeah.
20, and you have 50, and you have hundreds, and now we have thousands of users
Yeah.
that have signed up on the platform, where we're
Yeah.
just so lucky to be involved in the journey.
1,000%. Okay. So final question for you,
Yep.
Luke.
Anything.
What is your wish for Cadre as we head into 2025? I mean, this is a little bit about our origin story.
Yep.
I know we have our internal 3-year goal, 5-year goal, et cetera. Like, what are you most excited about heading into this next year with Cadre, and what do you hope happens in our community in the next year?
I think there's two things that would resonate with me most right now. We strategically have held our storytelling of the business in the hands and the eyes of the beholder. We're letting our users, the companies, the organizations that we work with.
Yeah.
And what I found over the last year is the momentum is the most beautiful thing to watch, to see. We used to reach out to others and say, would you be interested in trying our new platform and all the things? It's actually now switched to the other way around.
Yeah.
The market is coming to us. Individuals are coming to us. Key contributors, collaborators are coming to us. So to impact more lives is what floats my boat.
Yep.
Like to impact more lives, and knowing that the strategic roadmap
Yeah.
over, like you said, the 1, 3, 5-year vision and plan, that is all fine and dandy.
Yeah.
But it's those moments in time that really keep you going.
Yeah.
Is the jewel moment that you explained.
Yeah.
And those moments are hitting us organically more and more and more every day.
Yeah.
And it is just really beautiful to watch.
That's awesome.
That's number one, from, call it there's the head and the heart.
Yep.
And then the head side of this, or the analytics of the organization, where it's going and why it's going there, is, there's a big marketplace shift, right? Where there's the Mental Health and Parity Act. There is the 1, 2, or 3 things that almost every employee is going to say when they sign up for an organization is, I care about my salary and what are the benefits?
Yep.
Right? What are the benefits, which include but not limited to mental health support, you name it.
Yep.
So we have to, as an organization, dive deeper into the needs and wants of not only the end user, but the organizations in meeting their demands.
Absolutely.
And so if we lead with our heart, that we are very grateful to get the opportunity to do this every day, and we fulfill by meeting the needs of the organizations as well as the end users, there's this beautiful match and marriage made in heaven, which is a mission-driven organization.
I agree.
And if we can continue to be those things, I am very, very confident that Cadre will continue to propel itself into a leader in this space.
I love it. It's fantastic.
So, what about you?
I think I double down on what you said, as far as I think we do need to continue to understand the needs of our organizations that we're serving. I think from a heart perspective, I'm equally excited to continue to build out these communities with peers, professionals, organizations. A couple months ago, we had an event about creating emotional safety where Bukata Hayes, I think he's the VP of Equity and Inclusion at Blue Cross Blue Shield of Minnesota, spoke. And one thing he said really resonated with me. It stayed with me this whole time, which is let's let communities tell us what they want. And so for me, my goal is to really continue to bring people into our communities with their voices to tell us what they want. Because I believe if we can deliver robust communities full of people who are having this pluralistic discourse, who are there for each other, supporting each other, and these things are robust and alive and real generationally, right? So we just had some new interns join our team. Like, I want their voices there. I want all the things, like we are, we're 2 white privileged people. Like, I want all the voices at the table to be there. And I believe if we can deliver those communities, then we can deliver to our employers, because then we're going to be able to give them, we're going to be giving them the perfect place to send their people. When their people come to us and say, I have a substance use problem, we're going to be able to say there's a whole community of that. So I think that's what I'm excited about for 2025, is continuing to just build those communities.
Well, we're going to do it.
We're going to do it, Luke.
That's all that there's.
Are you going to sing us out with the jingle?
I will.
No, you're
Just kidding. It's you.
I'm not doing it.
All right. Good.
All
deal.
right.
Well, thank you.
Thank you.